Welcome to our session this afternoon. I'm happy you sped up your lunch and were able to make it here by 1 o'clock. Today we are going to show you how you can use Power CLI in your new ESXi 5 environment. As you can see from the slide, there's two of us. At the moment I'm alone here on the stage. Alan will join us shortly. Before I start the session, let me just change a few things on our demo ESXi machine. This hasn't been set up correctly, so just a minute now. I think I will need to go here in the views.
Stop! What are you doing? I am Power CLI man. Luke, as the co-author of this brilliant book, you should not be using the service console.
Yeah, but I need to stream. Okay.
Power CLI is the ultimate tool for managing ESX and ESXi. Today I'm going to leave it to my friend Luke and Alan, who I'm not sure where he is, who will be here later and will show you how to manage ESXi and take you through it. So Luke, why don't you get on with it and show them the correct way of doing this?
Okay, I'll go back to the slides then. Wow, I didn't expect that to happen on the stage. Okay, on with the session. We have this classic slide that you've seen in many sessions probably. It's a disclaimer. Please read it. You will be questioned on leaving the room if you know everything on there. Okay, what are we going to talk about today? We are going to tell you, first of all, why you need Power CLI to manage your vSphere environment. We'll show you the new stuff that is available in Power CLI 5, which, as you know, appeared about a week ago. We'll show you the new things in there. You know that there are new snap-ins that allow you to create an image and deploy an image in your environment. The thing that you will probably fear most is, some of you at least, is there is no console anymore. So how do I do stuff that I used to do in the console? We'll try to show you how that works. So we'll do the configuration part, the reporting part. We also show you there's still a small bit that you can't do with Power CLI. We'll mention some of those that we know about. And we'll come to a conclusion at the end of our session. Okay, my co-speaker, oh, finally.
Sorry,
No problem.
Radio across the road.
I could imagine, yeah. My colleague Alan here, he has been a vExpert for 2 years in 2009 and 2010. Then he joined VMware and gave up the right to be a vExpert, apparently. He does his blogging, as you all know probably, on virtual.l.net. And he does, together with Jonathan Met, which is a Microsoft MVP and a co-author of our book, a fabulous podcast, which you should surely listen to.
So my co-presenter here is Luke Deakins. I'm sure everybody knows him. If you've been to the Power CLI community, you will certainly know who Luke is. I still believe that he is actually a Terminator sent back through time to help PowerShell self-evolve. He's a vExpert 2009, 2010 and 2011. You beat me there, mate. Yeah. He works for Eurocontrol in Belgium and has the awesome blog lukedinfo.
Okay, like we promised, we will first, in a few lines, tell you why you should be using Power CLI. Okay, Power CLI is in fact a snap-on on PowerShell, which is the new universal language in your Windows environment. And we are lucky to have one of the fathers of PowerShell present in the room here, Jeffrey Snover. We bow in humble admiration. So thanks to the product that he produced there and the snap-in that VMware produced, we are able to manage and automate, that's more importantly, our complete vSphere environment. A lot of the commandlets, in fact the commandlets provide you a lot of the functionality that you will need in your vSphere environment, and what is not there in a commandlet yet, you can still reach by going through the public APIs that vSphere or VMware offers you. We said it's the universal language, and you will notice this, especially if you're coming from a Windows environment. This is the thing to use and to learn, at least if you don't know it yet. Another advantage of using PowerShell and Power CLI, these are both very active communities. If you look at the PowerShell community on the Microsoft side, if you send a question there, it's answered within minutes. On Power CLI, we try to reach that goal as well, and sometimes we succeed.
Sometimes.
Now, why should you automate your vSphere environment? Okay, this is the only animation I think we have in these slides, luckily. On average, and I think the count dated from some months ago, on average every 3 seconds another VM is born somewhere in the world. So there's hundreds, thousands, millions of them coming eventually. So you don't want to click away in your vSphere client to create these babies. You want to do this on a structured, automated way. That is the primary reason why you would need Power CLI. Okay, Power CLI 5 appeared about a week ago. And what is new in there? They provided new snap-ins. Okay, the first one you know, that's the core that was there in the previous release as well. The new ones are there, and they provide you access to the licensing manager. They also provide you access to the image builder, which is new in the 5 environment. And they provide you access to the auto-deploy functionality. This is a snapshot. I'm not sure if you can all read it all the way in the back of the room, but okay, what this shows you is just the get PS snap-in and the output. You will see the 4 snap-ins that come with Power CLI if you install version 5. Now, deploying ESXi is completely new in vSphere 5. Alan will gladly show you how this is done.
Thanks, Steve. So was everybody at the keynote speech this morning that Steve Herrick gave? Put your hands up. Yeah, pretty much everybody, which is a good thing. So you heard him mention the auto-deploy and deploying stateless ESX or diskless ESXi to the hosts. So hopefully what we're going to do is take you through that and kind of explain it a little bit. If you've got any more questions, then pick me up afterwards and we'll talk about it. And I'm going to take you through the whole process, front to end, setting it up, and we'll see if we can deploy a host. Well, hopefully we will, because it's a recorded demo. So if you think about the current methods or the old methods in version 4 about what we used to do when we were deploying ESXi or ESX, it would be you would have to choose from installing it from a CD or a USB key, SD card type thing, or you would install it onto internal disk, and you could also boot from SAN. So new in version 5 is this diskless part, which hopefully I will be able to explain. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about. Luke mentioned that there were 3 new snap-ins, one for licensing. I'm not sure if that's got anything to do with VRAM at all. But he also spoke about image builder and auto-deploy. Now the two work together nicely, and I'll explain how they do this. But first of all, we'll talk about image builder. So image builder is a way of building your ISOs or your software depots. Now, if we think about some of the challenges that we used to have out there when we had our ESX downloaded and needed to install it, if you had like a HP server, then you had to wait for HP to release their customized version that had all the HP drivers in it, or the Dell servers. You had to wait for them to release that if you had something that wasn't supported. So they were kind of static type images that we needed to mess around with to get working. So they had missing providers, missing drivers. And so moving on, what ESXi actually uses is something called a vSphere installation bundle. Now this is kind of a packaged item that we use to deploy all the items within ESXi, and not only the VMware stuff, but also the third-party vendors can also create these, so partners can create these for drivers and things like that as well. So the VIB file is an important thing to remember here, because it's basically the fundamentals of the items that we put inside our image. So I spoke about image builder, And like I said, it is a Power CLI snap-in at the moment, so there's no GUI for it. I've built a Power Pack that I'm going to release soon. For any of you that are familiar with Power GUI, you could basically load this Power Pack into Power GUI, and it'll kind of put a nice GUI interface on there. So I know some people aren't always keen to jump in with Power CLI, like myself and Luke, and obviously Power CLI man. But so the GUI might help you out there a little bit. But what we need to do first of all is build our ESXi image, and that is the combination of these VIB files that I was talking about earlier. And once you've built these ESXi images, you can actually, using the image builder commandlets, you can convert them into an ISO file. So you can create your ISO file and use that once it's got all your third-party drivers in there and everything's built all nice, and then stick that in your server and install it. Or you can actually create something called a software depot. I'll explain the software depot in a moment. But if we take a quick look at this and just go over that again, because I know it's new stuff, so it's always hard to pick up straight away. So we basically start with our Power CLI session and Windows PowerShell, and once we've loaded Power CLI, it has the image builder snap-in already loaded. So we then take our software depots, which I was talking about, and that's just a collection of VIBs, so ESXi VIBs, driver VIBs, third-party, OEM VIBs. And we, using the image builder commandlets, we create an image profile, and we generate this new ISO, or this new offline Pixie bootable image, which is the software depot bit. Now, don't worry if this isn't all clear. I know I'm going a million miles an hour, but the demo should make it a little bit clearer. So once we've got our nice image, our software deployment, how do we then push this out to our servers? Well, that brings me on to our second snap-in, which was released in version 5, and this is what Steve was talking about this morning. This is auto-deploy. Now, auto-deploy is based on Pixie boot, so it will allow you to basically deploy the image profile that we have, the software depot that we have, straight out to your ESXi hosts. So you boot your host, it comes up, and Pixie boot picks up an IP address and goes straight through and installs ESXi straight onto the bare metal device. So some of the benefits of this is obviously you don't need a boot disk. So, you know, cost savings, all that kind of stuff. You can quickly and easily deploy large numbers of servers. If you think about it, it's just a case of turning the host on, waiting for it to Pixie boot, allowing it to pick up the Pixie image, and it will quickly deploy these new hosts for you. You can share the standard image across all your ESXi hosts. So once you've created your image and you've created it how you want it, perhaps you've got HP DL380 and it's got some kind of weird driver that you need for a NIC or something. Once you've created that image profile, you can actually use that and deploy all of your same servers using that one image. That will help you because the bottom line here says update of an image is just a reboot. So if you think about the way we used to do things, we used to use Update Manager to apply the updates to the hosts. Well, now we're using this stateless image. What's to stop us from just adding the new VIBs in our image profile and rebooting the host? It'll come up with this new image and it will have all the latest stuff, and you'll be sure that what's on one server is exactly the same as what's on every other server. So I mentioned that you don't have boot disks, and there's probably some alarms going off in heads in the room for the people that know that how things ESXi4 work. So you know, there's stuff that we store on the boot disk. There's configuration stuff. There's virtual machine information. There's HA information. There's license information, DPM, and things like log files and core dumps. So where are they gone? Anyone that's installed ESXi 5, I'm sure you all had time before you came to VMworld because you had 2 days? So anyone that's installed it will know that we've actually got some new installable components when you install ESXi, when you install vCenter now. As part of that, you can install things like a log file collector and a core dump collector on a separate server. So these items that were on the boot disk can be moved over. Now, if you think about configuration, all of that stuff has been moved over into host profiles. Host profiles have been advanced, and there's a lot more in there. So you can start storing all of your network, your storage, and all that kind of information within your host profiles that get applied to your servers. And some of the other information, like the inventory, the HA state, and DPM configuration, has been moved into vCenter. So there's a few components that you need to get this actually working. It's not as bad as it looks on the screen. I think I've mentioned just about everything that you may ever possibly need, rather than just the basics there. So you'll obviously need a PXE boot infrastructure, which means you'll need a DHCP server and the ability to enable PXE booting. You'll need a TFTP server to deploy these PXE images over to your hosts. You'll need the auto-deploy server, image builder, which we spoke about a moment ago, and you'll need the vCenter server as well. So you can see it on the screen at the moment. We've got the Power CLI commandlets that are used in auto-deploy, and they obviously are the same kind of commandlets that you would use in Power CLI and PowerShell. They're all based upon the same rules. So with the boring slides over, let's get on with the demo, because that's actually the interesting bit. So you can see here that I've got a pre-built virtual center server. Now, with version 5, I just went to the auto-deploy plugin, which was installed from the vSphere, the vCenter installation. What I'm doing here is just clicking on one button within the plugin to download the files that we need for that server to start deploying our hosts. So I'm going to put those in a folder called TFTP root on my C drive. You can see I've got a bunch of files in there that are used for our PXE boot. I'm going to take a quick swap over to my domain controller, which happens to have DHCP on it. Now you can see my DHCP scope here. I've put a reservation in there for the MAC address of my host that I want to deploy ESXi to. And it's got some basic information in there, like the name of the host, so the name I want to give that host. It's got some configuration brought in through the DHCP standard settings. And then it's got a couple that I've added in there myself, which is the boot server host name and the bootable name, the boot file name, sorry. So as we go back into vCenter, I've installed a free TFTP server application on my host. If I go to configure this service, it just basically points to that root folder we created earlier and extracted our zip file into. And I've clicked start, so it started the service and it's ready to start taking TFTP processes. Now, for ease, I actually created a VM rather than using a host, because it was easier for videos and screenshots. So imagine this is a host. And we'll boot it up and we'll see what happens. You can see it's picked up an address from DHCP, which is good. It started to pick up our PXE boot files. And it's moving through the PXE boot and it's come to a halt. So the first time you boot this, now obviously I haven't gone through any configuration of auto-deploy yet. So the first time I boot this, it'll actually come up with some information saying, you know, this is great, you've got the PXE boot working, but here's some things that you can use within your rules to identify this server. So you can use things like the vendor ID, whether it's HP or Dell or stuff like that, or you can narrow it down to the IP address, or you know, anything that's in there really. So let's now go into Power CLI and start configuring the rules that we need to PXE boot this host. So I've connected to my virtual infrastructure server. Now I've already downloaded the software depot which I was talking about earlier and will be available from the VMware site. So the first thing we'll need to do is just add that software depot into our session. You can see I'm actually adding the zip file in there, so it's not been extracted. And now if we take a look at what was in that zip file, we can see a couple of images already in there. So there's the no tools version, which is a version of ESXi with the tools vib taken out for lightweight deployment. And there was the standard version as well. So if I just select one of those for now and expand the vib list, you will see what I mean about these image profiles being built with vibs. So you can see there every single vib that's installed as part of this image. And you end with the image profile, the image builder commandlets. You can go in there, you can remove these, you can add new ones. So we'll stick with what we've got for now. I'm just going to do a simple bit of PowerShell here just to select the standard ESXi image rather than one with no tools, because that's the one I want to actually deploy to my hosts. Okay, so I can select that. I'm going to store that into a variable. Just to make it easier to use later on. You can see if I expand that variable, I've got that item in there ready to use. So let's start using the auto deploy snap-in now, and I'll create a new rule. So I'm going to say I want this rule to be called deploy my general image. The item will be the ESXi profile that we just talked about, the software depot that we spoke about a moment ago, which is in $image. And then the pattern is the bit that came on the screen when we booted the host. So in this case, I'm going to choose the IP address just to make it easier for me to pick this host up. But obviously you could use the generic vendor equals HP type pattern in here, and then every HP server you built would apply to this rule. So we'll add that in. Now the first time you add these in, it will actually upload the vibs that are not in your auto deploy cache up to your auto deploy cache, so that they're there for when you use them when you PXE boot. It's only going to upload one at the moment because I previously uploaded all of the other vibs to cut time a little bit. So it's created our first rule. That's great. We can now deploy that image to our ESXi host using PXE boot. So, but I want to take it one step further. With auto deploy, you can not only deploy the image, you can actually say to it, once you've built this host, I want you to join a new cluster, and I want you to apply a new host profile to this server. So you can see here that I've done a get cluster test, which will get the cluster in our virtual center, and I've stored that into $cluster. And again, I'm going to store my host profile into a variable called host profile. These are just simple things that I do to make life easier when I do the actual rules and set the rules up. So now we've done that, we can add the rules in like we did last time using the new deploy rule. And this time, rather than specifying the item as being the image, so I'll give this a new name. I'll call it ESX1 cluster because I want to add this this host into that cluster. And again, similarly with the host profile, you can see that we're now going to attach the new host profile to our host. So that's great. We now have 3 rules. Let's have a look at these 3 rules that we've got set up. There's one there to deploy the image. There's one there to add it into a cluster, and there's another one to apply that host profile once it's been added into that cluster. So if I run the get deploy rule set, that actually shows you the rules that are currently active. You can see I don't have any at the moment. So what we need to do is just get all of our deploy rules and add those into our deploy rule set using the add deploy rule command. Now if I do a get deploy rule set, you can see that we're all fine, everything's set up, it's all active. So let's go back over to our host, not virtual machine, host. I'll click play on there and you can see that our host is starting to boot, it's picking up the DHCP, it's picking up and it's starting to deploy ESXi, stateless. I've obviously speeded this up a little bit. We've all seen an ESXi host boot. You don't need to spend your time watching that in this demo. You can see it boots exactly the same as it would do if it was installed on a USB key or if it was installed on the local disks. And then once it's completed, we end up with an ESXi host already built. There we go. It's been built, and you can see the name of it was auto deploy. Now I've gone quickly back into Virtual Center. There's no magic going on here. I haven't touched the keyboard. You can see the tasks at the bottom there. It's already added that host into our test cluster like we asked it to. And now it's attaching the host profile to that host, so it's going to apply all of our configuration settings, stuff like your networks, your data stores, your NTP servers, all the kind of stuff you would normally have in your host profiles. And now that host profile has been attached to our host, it's been built, it's been put in our cluster, and we have a new host. We can go into networking and we can see that our host profile has been applied there because we've got my custom networking. If I go back, you can see that I've got a couple of NFS data stores there as well that I set up in my host profile. So that host is now ready to go. And that took, what, 13 minutes? So that was 13 minutes for one host. But like I said, those rules are generic. You could set those up for anything with a HP. So in theory, we've just deployed 100, 1,000 hosts in 13 minutes. That's pretty good. Yeah, you can clap. So I'll hand back to Luke now. We'll take you through some of the other options that we've got.
Okay, thanks, Alan. I must say I'm impressed when I saw this the first time. I hope you are as well. If for one or the other reason you're not going to use this auto-deploy, licensing for example, there are some other options that you have. You can still build the images, but you can use your own Pixie manager and set up. There's still one available on Fling. Of course, it's not supported, but you can use it. There is another way to do it. You can still build your ISO images, like Alan showed you in the demo earlier, and use that ISO image to deploy via host profiles and configure the machines. And later on with host profiles. You can go even one step lower. You can use this ISO, deploy your ESX, and do the configuration completely in a Power CLI script. There's X number of samples available on the Power CLI community, how you should do this. And you can go all out and do the complete installation on a scripted base. That's possible as well. So one of the things that provoked a lot of rumor when they announced that the cost would be gone, there's a lot of people that apparently for one reason or the other use that console. So VMware did a short, small environment survey. And what is amazing there is if you look on the row that we highlighted with the yellow arrow or speak box there, there's still 66% of users apparently that go into the console to do certain stuff. So I was amazed by that. Another question in that survey was if you have to use a tool, which one would you prefer to use? Okay, we're very happy that Power CLI came out on top of there. So there's a lot of people that intend to use PowerCLI. And what we particularly aim is those 25% at the bottom row, they don't have a preference. Those are the ones we want to pull over in the PowerCLI side of things, of course. There is a table, and it's available on the ESXi poster. I think that will be available in the labs. You can pick it up there, and there's a very handy table in there, which you see here. In the first column we show, or the poster better, shows commands that you executed in your console. The second column shows the alternative, a PowerCLI command that you now have to do the same thing. And at the third column you see how you can do it with the ESXi command, the 5 version of course. So if you have the chance, go to the lab, pick up that poster, very handy tool to have around in your cubicle or wherever you work. So our definition, our statement here is there are still some empty boxes in there on the PowerCLI column, but use the tool that gets the job done. So, and we prefer, of course, that you do most of it through PowerCLI. Now, configuring your ESXi servers with PowerCLI, there's not a lot that is new, in fact. Everything that you did before for your ESXi servers in 4.4.1 is still available and will still work with your 5 environment. So we wrote down on these slides a few examples. You have this log management. It's a very simple command, that get log. Most of you probably know it if you already worked with PowerCLI. You have the classical get view, which Vladimir and Javor yesterday showed in their reporting session. I hope you were all there. You can pick up properties from the object that is returned, report them, export them to a CSV file, whatever you want. There is very specific tasks. For example, your ESXi, like Alan said, the configuration will be gone if you reboot the machine. So you can back up part of that configuration, the firmware in this case, also through a commandlet, and restore it eventually. Something that most of you probably also know, and that Alan promised us a few minutes ago, that we will have shortly a power pack for this auto-deploy and image builder thing. So the Power GUI, if you prefer a GUI environment to do that stuff, this is one way to go. Like I mentioned earlier, you can build your own upgrade scripts. You do the post-configuration work all from your PowerCLI scripts. You can even read out the configuration of an existing ESXi server and reapply it on your new servers. Again, there's samples available in the PowerCLI community. This will, of course, also allow you to do it in an automated way, to do mass upgrades of your environment. Last week there was a very, and I hope most of you will, or saw it, or will read it when they're back home. There were 3 posts in the Update Manager community that describe how to, and especially the second one, it provides 2 scripts that will show you how to upgrade your ESXi 4.1 servers to 5. So definitely have a look. It's written by someone from the Update Manager Snap-in team, I think, if I'm correct. So definitely visit that one. It's worth the while. Okay, another thing that we are used doing with PowerCLI is reporting. Like I said before, everything still works. 95, I think it's practically 100 at the moment. Got commandlets more than 100 that you have. So we should have updated that slide. There's this very handy feature, and Javor and Vladimir explained that yesterday as well. And if you look at the PowerCLI blog, they just published a few hours ago a new blog entry that explains everything you ever need to know about the new VI property and how to use it in your environment. What we did is I have a few new VI properties on my blog, and a week or 2 ago we bundled them in a module so you can get them all in one go. And if you want to do it quickly from a GUI environment, again, revert to the reports, most of them written by the community, but specifically Alan, which are available in these power packs. This is one of example of such a report that you can get. It's not just a plain HTML, it's very intelligent. There's some style sheets behind it, there's some small scripts. You see the hide button, hide show, it's a bit of an interactive report. You can bring up whatever you want to see. We have a demo. Where is it? Yeah, okay. Okay. What we just saw, I will do a short demo. Again, it's a recorded demo. We don't do live demos. Okay. So what we're doing here is very simple. We get for our collection of hosts, we're going to save the logs that are available on these servers, and we save them in the location as you can see in the destination path. This is quite handy if you want to keep an archive for auditing reasons, I don't know what. So at the bottom, at the output window, you see that it's saved as a zipped tar file. Okay, this is the file itself. This is an example of this get view commandlet followed by a select commandlet. Most of these are, in fact, in this case, most of these are calculated properties. Notice that we use the outgrid commandlet at the end. Jalvo showed that yesterday as well. It's a very handy way of displaying that information. This is just a small example how you would back up your firmware settings on your machine where you're running the script. Again, a tart zip file ready for storing and archiving. This is what you can get in the Power GUI environment. So it's a GUI environment. Behind there are all the scripts. You don't have to write the script yourself. You just call them. We need to connect, of course. And you see that if you list the servers, which ones are connected. That's what we're doing here. So you can call all these properties. You can expand this, customize this. It's just handy. It's already there in the Power Pack, and it just requires you to interact with the GUI. This is an example of the report. As you can see, there's lots of information in there. I think this one was mentioned yesterday as well in the other reporting session. But we couldn't change the video in the short time between yesterday and now, so it's still in here. This is a community Power Pack, also available for download from the Power GUI site. Same principle, you get everything displayed in a nice GUI environment. On the right, for those of you that don't know Power GUI yet, you have a number of commandlets, tasks that you can execute on these objects. Okay, this was just a small demo, in fact. I'm back. Okay. Now, there's, like we said, there's still some empty boxes in that table I showed earlier that is available on the on the ESXi poster. Now, what can you do? There are several commands that use private APIs. Of course, since they're private, you can't use them, unfortunately. Most of these are, on the other hand, available through the VMA or the RCLI, but not in Power CLI. Now, Robert van den Nieuwendijk, he recently on his blog posted, I think he's present here somewhere, he recently posted a blog post where he wrapped all these, which are in fact Perl functions, in a PowerShell wrapper. So you can call them from your Power CLI session. The only thing that they don't do, of course, is return a PowerShell object. It's flat text that you get. But it's still a good step in the right direction. So if you need to call one of these CLI commands, have a look at this blog post. What you also can do is the Nexus itself, the VMware distributed vSwitch that you can manage with the APIs without a problem. There are a few posts on the blogs available on how you can manage your distributed switches. Another thing, for example, is mounting a client device ISO. That's a functionality that's built into the vSphere client. There is no public API, as far as I know, that allows you to do that. Okay, the rest is rather straightforward. Something which is quite interesting is that the password complexity, for example, is configured in one of these ESXi config files. There is no way, at the moment that I know of, how to interact with that file. So that's a bit of a problem.
So I think we've made it pretty clear that Power CLI is the ultimate tool for managing ESXi. So why don't you be your organization's superhero and start using Power CLI? There's some other Power CLI sessions available at VMworld this year. If you have a chance, I do suggest you go and see the other ones. We've got another one later on today, which will go a little bit deeper into Power CLI and give you some of the best practices, some of the kind of things that Luke and I have learned the hard way, and we'll pass those along to you. And it is kind of for the more advanced user, maybe. So if you're a newbie, I would, maybe wouldn't suggest it too much. Although it could be good to learn what not to do. There's another couple of sessions as well worth watching. If you have a chance and you haven't done it as yet, go and do Lab 14 in the labs. Brilliant session on Power CLI, scenario-based, and you could end up being as good as Luke. Nearly. Now, if I have to wear, if Power CLI man has to wear a costume, then you have to fill out the survey. So please, 5s.
Are there any questions? Please use the mics. There's 2 mics in the room. If you have a question, please let us know. There's some posters on your way out for Power CLI 5. Please pick one up. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.